January 9th, 2022. In an instant, an entire nation's presence on the global internet vanishes. Across North Korea, the few websites belonging to the government, the official propaganda outlets, the email servers, and the state-run travel agencies go dark without a trace. Cybersecurity experts across the globe watch their monitors with disbelief. Is this a massive retaliatory strike by the United States following Kim Jong-un's recent flurry of missile tests? Is it a coordinated operation by a rival power like South Korea or Japan? The intelligence community is rife with speculation about digital armies and high-level covert operations. But the truth is far more surreal. It was not an army. It was not a government. It was one single man. A man sitting in his living room, wearing pajamas, armed with a supply of snacks, and a deep, burning sense of vengeance. This is the story of P4X, the hacker who declared war on a nuclear-armed regime from his personal computer. The origin, the hunter haunted. The story begins exactly 1 year earlier, in January 2021. A prominent American cybersecurity researcher, known in the digital world by the pseudonym P4X, was working at his desk when he received a message. Another supposed researcher was offering him a new software tool designed to find system vulnerabilities. P4X, being a cautious expert, decided to open the file within a secure virtual machine to inspect it. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. However, 24 hours later, Google published an explosive report. State-sponsored hackers linked to the North Korean government were personally targeting Western security researchers using booby-trapped files. P4X checked the tool he had been sent, and his stomach dropped. The file contained a hidden backdoor designed to give the spies in Pyongyang total access to his machine. They had tried to hack him in his own home. P4X was beyond indignant. Why was a nation-state attacking him, a private citizen? He managed to isolate the malware and avoid a total disaster, but the attempt left him furious. He realized he was not the only target. He was part of a massive campaign to steal hacking tools and technological secrets from experts just like him. In short, the hunters in Pyongyang were trying to hunt the hunters. The silence of authority P4X waited for a strong response from his own government. After all, an attack by foreign spies against an American citizen on domestic soil should be a national priority. An agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation eventually contacted him, but only to gather information. There was no follow-up, no assistance in securing his systems, and most frustratingly, no retaliation against the perpetrators. Months passed, and the government's silence was absolute. P4X felt abandoned by the institutions meant to protect him. "There is no one on our side," he concluded bitterly. It was in that moment of solitude and frustration that a bold idea was born. If the authorities were not going to avenge this attack, he would take it upon himself to give the regime a lesson they would never forget. The preparation. Mapping the fortress. The idea of a single man taking on the most isolated and hermetic regime on Earth seemed like a suicidal folly, but the more possible it seemed. By late 2021, his decision was made. He was going to unplug North Korea. He began with a phase of silent intelligence gathering. Surprisingly, he discovered that North Korea's internet infrastructure was ridiculously small and fragile. While the rest of the world has millions of connections, North Korea depends on a handful of networks and barely a few dozen official websites. It was a digital house of cards held together by ancient software and non-existent security patches. Night after night, P4X probed the North Korean systems from afar. He found vulnerabilities that were not even new. They were well-known flaws that the administrators in Pyongyang had never bothered to fix. He found ancient versions of Apache servers and a specific error in Engine X software that could collapse an entire system if a malformed data header was sent. For P4X, it was like discovering that North Korea had left all its front doors wide open with the keys in the locks. He wrote custom scripts to automate the attack. If one man was going to bring down a country, automation was the key. His code would scan the servers, detect which ones were online, and hit them with denial-of-service attacks until they were suffocated. The onslaught, pajamas and code. We arrive at January 2022. P4X sat in front of his laptop, wearing his usual uniform, a worn-out t-shirt and pajama pants. He had everything ready. He verified his tools one last time and launched the attack. Thousands of data packets began to fly across the ocean toward the North Korean servers. To pass the time and calm his nerves, he put a movie on the television while his code worked in the background. Every few minutes, he would pause the movie and check the progress. One by one, the regime's websites began to fall. He tried to enter the official news agency portal. Request timed out. He tried to enter the state airline page. No response. Not satisfied with that, P4X checked an independent monitoring service called Pingdom. The uptime graphs for North Korea's domains showed a sea of red, outages everywhere. A veteran researcher monitoring global traffic observed the massive wave of attacks and was baffled. He had no idea who was behind it, but the impact was total. P4X smiled. It was working, and nobody suspected that the person responsible was just a guy in his living room. North Korea was in total digital darkness. Media chaos and global mystery. By the next morning, the news of the blackout in North Korea spread like wildfire through the intelligence communities. The speculations were wild. Had the United States Cyber Command taken direct action, Pyongyang kept a predictable silence, but the damage was done. Within the country, most citizens did not even find out, as less than 1% of the population has access to the global network. However, the blackout was an international humiliation for the leadership, affecting their propaganda servers and the email accounts used for foreign espionage. For several days, P4X played with the regime's connection as if it were a light switch. The websites would come back up and he would knock them down again. He was not looking for fame or money, he was looking for personal justice. He enjoyed watching the world debate covert state operations while he remained in his pajamas in front of his keyboard. I definitely wanted to affect the government as much as possible and the people as little as possible, he later stated with a clear conscience. The Funk Project and the legacy P4X decided that a temporary attack was not enough. He wanted this to be a movement. He created a website on the dark web called the Funk Project, which stands for FU North Korea. His goal was to recruit other activists to multiply his firepower. This is a project to keep North Korea honest, the site declared. He was forming a vigilante digital army. Not everyone in the cybersecurity community applauded his actions. Some feared that his noisy attacks might interfere with legitimate and silent espionage missions by Western intelligence agencies. Others pointed out that, technically, P4X was violating American law. Hacking, even against a hostile power, is illegal. But P4X remains defiant. For him, it was a necessary message. If you attack us, we will hit back and it won't be a government agency coming for you. It will be a guy in his pajamas. The weight of a nuclear state. As the days passed, the technical magnitude of what P4X had achieved became clearer. He had exploited what is known as a denial of service, or DDoS attack, but with a level of surgical precision rarely seen. Usually, these attacks require thousands of infected computers, a botnet, to overwhelm a target. P4X, however, used his knowledge of the regime's specific software errors to make their own servers consume their own resources until they collapsed. It was the digital equivalent of a judo throw, using the opponent's own weight against them. While the world's media continued to talk about the mysterious state-sponsored attack, P4X continued his daily life. He went to work, ate dinner with his family, and occasionally checked his scripts. The contrast was staggering. In one world, he was an ordinary citizen. In the other, he was the person holding the digital throat of a nuclear-armed dictatorship. A question of ethics and law. The story of P4X raises a fundamental question about the era we live in. When a nation-state attacks a private citizen, and the citizen's own government offers no protection or recourse, what are the limits of self-defense? The FBI's lack of action is what drove P4X to take the law into his own hands. In the traditional world, if a foreign agent broke into your house, the police would respond. In the digital world, the lines are blurred. P4X argued that he was simply tearing down a dictator's billboards. However, the legal risks remain. The United States Department of Justice has historically been very strict with hackers, even those with good intentions. But as of mid-2026, no charges have been brought against him. Perhaps it is because the government realized that P4X had achieved more in a week of pajama warfare than many official sanctions had achieved in years. The long-term impact. Eventually, P4X stopped his attacks. He had made his point. North Korea eventually patched some of the holes he had exploited, but the myth of their impenetrable digital fortress was shattered. They were shown to be vulnerable, not to an army, but to the frustration of a single talented individual. Today, P4X continues to work in the shadows of the cybersecurity industry. He rarely gives interviews, and when he does, he keeps his identity protected. He doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be a warning. His story serves as a reminder to every government and every organization. In the interconnected world of the 21st century, you never know who is on the other side of the screen. You might be targeting a simple researcher, but you might also be waking up a giant who doesn't need a uniform to fight back. Conclusion. The power of one, the story of the North Korean blackout, is more than just a tech anecdote. It is a testament to the power of the individual in the digital age. It shows that a single person, fueled by a clear purpose and technical mastery, can level the playing field against a global power. North Korea may have its missiles, its parades, and its millions of soldiers, but for a few days in 2022, all of that was irrelevant because one man in his pajamas decided that he had had enough. As we move further into a century dominated by cyber warfare, the legend of P4X will likely be told in the halls of both hackers and intelligence officers. It is a story of vengeance, of neglect, and of the incredible, terrifying reach of a single keyboard. The next time you see a news report about a mysterious outage or a state-sponsored attack, remember P4X. Remember that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not a nation, but a man who was simply pushed too far.